About 2 years ago, Ethan Lebowski and Adam Raducia posted videos about how to make oven-baked fries. In Ethan's recipe, he changed two major things about Adam's recipe. First, he added vinegar to the boiling water, and second, he added salt to the boiling water. Now, in the comments of his videos, there was a decent amount of discussion about whether vinegar is the best thing to add to the water to pre-boil your potatoes. Along with those in the comments of his videos, I found multiple points where J. Kenji Lopez Alt references putting vinegar in his water, putting in baking soda in his water. So he seems to be a little divided on this topic as well. And I think it's important to understand what these chemicals are doing to the potato as it boils. By doing this, we're able to change the potatoes to how we want them. I don't think there is necessarily a best way to make these, and I think it's a matter of personal preference. So I think it's best that we understand what these are doing, and that is the point of my experiment today. And hopefully the results we find and the science we learn can be applied to more than just oven-baked fries. According to David Mitke on Food and Cooking, he talks a lot about how alkaline solution versus a acidic solution affects vegetables, specifically starchy vegetables like potatoes. These two solutions will affect the pectin in different ways. A high acid environment will stop the breakdown of pectin while it boils. Pectin helps potato cells stay together. This means once the potato is done boiling, the potato will remain fairly intact. On the other end, plain water and an alkaline solution will increase how much pectin is broken down. I was surprised to learn on Food and Cooking that there are actually many factors that affect potatoes' firmness. For example, cooking them from cold water up to a boil will actually create a firmer potato. Also, adding salt to your water will actually break down the cell walls more and create a softer potato. There's a variety of these factors, and I've created this small chart to summarize what I found and what I think is applicable to us here. I would actually recommend going and reading the section on Food and Cooking on this, and there's a lot of interesting science, and he includes some drawings of pectin and the cells we see. So while there's many factors, I'm going to try and keep all of those factors the same as we cook these potatoes. While sodium will break down the potatoes more, they do create, as Ethan states, a tastier potato. I understand why Adam might not include this, as it may have broken down his potatoes too much. But I am going to add 10 grams of salt, kosher salt, into my 2 quarts of water. This is also cold water from the tap to avoid any extra hardness that might come from the water heater. Then, placing these 3 pots on to boil, I added 1/8 cup of vinegar to the vinegar pot, and I added 1 teaspoon of baking soda to the baking soda pot. Now, one unfair factor here is the baking soda pot didn't quite reach a boil before I added the potatoes, but it was only down by 10 or so degrees. Another big question is how long should these boil for? Adam cooks his in plain water for 8 minutes, or as he says, until they're about to fall apart. Ethan states to boil them for 8 minutes the same, essentially cooking them all the way through. For crispiness, we're mostly worried about the outer layer of potato, but the inner layer should not be neglected here. So to test this, I'm going to pull out 1 fry every minute from each pot of water. This will also give us a good representation of how the potatoes are doing and how boiling them in these solutions affect them. After we have all of our potatoes out, we need to talk about how we're going to oil them. Adam uses olive oil because he likes the taste, although he notes that you can use other kinds of oil. Ethan, one of his big changes was using peanut oil because it has a very high percentage of saturated fats, as noted in Kenji's book, The Food Lab. Here is an image of that chart that Ethan is referencing. I'm going to use canola oil because that's what I had on hand, but looking back now, I think this was a major mistake. I should have just used olive oil, which has almost double the amount of saturated fat, which would have led to more crisping. It also doesn't give a very accurate representation between Ethan's peanut oil recipe and Adam's olive oil recipe. I should have referenced this chart first, but it is what it is and we're gonna push on. I made sure that all of these fries were evenly covered in the oil and had a fair bit of oil on the pan beneath them. I would like to redo this experiment at some point, fixing all the issues that I've learned. If there's interest in this, let me know, or if there's something else you'd like to see before then, let me know that as well down below. I baked these at 450 degrees Fahrenheit, starting with 15 minutes. At the 15-minute mark, I went ahead and flipped them over, being very careful. Then I gave them an additional 10 minutes, and flipped them for a second time. Then I gave them a final 10 minutes to bake, and pulled them out. This is because some of the fries were starting to get a little too dark, but some of them were very blonde still. Here's where I realized that even though my fries were fairly close in shape, they weren't quite good enough for this experiment. Many of the small fries got overdone and were hollow on the inside, but were very crispy on the outside because they dehydrated faster. The larger fries had a great mushy texture on the inside, but remained quite blonde on the outside. So I feel like this kind of nullified the different times we had boiling wise. I would say there's quite a large difference between a 1-minute boil and a 7-minute boil on the similar size fries, but it's hard for me to tell you exactly which minute is the optimal one. I found the vinegar fries to have a slightly more chewy consistency. The outside was more chewy and dense than I would say crispy. The inside did have a slight vinegar taste. They had a little bit of a zip to them, and I quite like that. I don't think that's any sort of issue. The chewiness is a little unfortunate, as I like more crisp, easy to chew fry. The baking soda fries, while very easy to break, did lead to a crispier fry. These tended to be a little more flaky on the outside. They had a similar consistency on the inside, but I found them much easier to chew. This led to an overall better texture and better experience. But these fries were a little nerve-wracking to flip the first time and were a little difficult to get out of the water without breaking. In each batch I tossed in 1 or 2 extra fries just in case, and the plain and the baking soda both used up these extras. The plain water batch I found a little uninspiring compared to the other two. It had a outer texture in between the baking soda and the vinegar, which isn't too surprising, but I would much rather have the crispiness of the baking soda. I would also greatly prefer the zip and the taste of the vinegar. After tasting the vinegar, I was a little worried that the baking soda would have a baking soda graininess or bitterness to it. After its bait, there was no evidence that these were cut in baking soda at all. In fact, they tasted exactly like the plain water fries. Looking here at the post-boiled potatoes, we can see the results of not breaking down the pectin. The baking soda fry fell apart very quickly on the whittle test. The plain lasted a few more whittles, and the vinegar was quite hard to break. Overall, we have some mixed results. For one, the fry shape was not consistent, and this made it very hard to tell exactly what the differences are between the potatoes, and kind of threw out all of the time, pre-boil time, that we tested. Second, the use of canola oil meant that some of the potatoes dehydrated. This meant I had to pull out all of the potatoes once those ones had dehydrated before they were able to crisp up due to the oil. If I was to repeat this experiment, I would probably use peanut oil, and I would like to see how they compare to the potatoes in this video. Lastly, one of the big debates I had was the time. Is it best to cook all the potatoes the same length of time so we can compare how they're crisping up at that specific time? Or is it better to keep pulling out the fries one at a time as they finish? I obviously chose to pour them all out at the same time, and I think that is a easier result to compare. But I would be interested to hear your thoughts. I'm obviously no professional at this, just very interested. So if you have any thoughts, please leave them down below. And if you'd like to see a sentient video of this sort fixing my mistakes, then let me know and I'll do it. I do want to start making more videos again. Obviously, it's been a very long time since the last one. I want to do more explorative videos such as this one, exploring spices and other interesting food science aspects of cooking and how we can apply them. In particular, I have some ideas relating to hot cocoa, or how we can change skin so that it crisps up more, bakes better. If you made it to this point in the video, thanks for watching all the way through. Watch time really helps with YouTube, as well as leaving a like and a comment interacting with the video just for the sake of the YouTube algorithm. Also, let me know if you liked this style of video more than what I've done in the past, and what you think could improve them. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. This has been Yeti Set Cook.